Hi, ladies. I am just starting this live stream now, and I'm going to copy the link and put it in an email to you all. So sorry if you have to sit here for a minute and awkwardly look at my face after you click on the link. So yeah, I am just sending it, and here it goes. All right. So usually I like to wait a minute just so that everyone can sign on. And I also would love if anyone is currently signed on to GChat or on their email. Obviously, you'd have to be on your email if you're watching this. If you could just send me a quick message and let me know that it is indeed working, that would be lovely. It wasn't working earlier. I've done 2 of these already today because I think Google actually changed some of their settings. So there was a brief crisis, which has now been solved. Just a quick heads up, I'm currently in my kitchen dining area in my house. This is actually the first live stream from my new house. So I have a lovely brick wall now. I managed to do these. But I did wake up to a delightful leak in my bedroom ceiling this morning. So my brother is here being quiet somewhere in the living room. And he may have to open the door because the roofing person might come to fix this problem today. So if you hear some noise in the background, that's probably what that is, or if you hear like that knock or something like that. So that was enjoyable. I hope you guys had a slightly less chaotic beginning to your snow day. It is beautiful outside. I am actually looking out my back door right now, my back window. And there's icicles everywhere and like the snow is coming down and it's really lovely. So I hope everyone's enjoying this beautiful scenery and being safe and not driving later because it looks pretty icy. At this point in time, I am not a weather god. I do not know whether we have school or not tomorrow. If we don't, then I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't be seeing you. So I might do a live broadcast again anyway, just to sort of, so that we can finish Hamlet and not get behind. So yeah. So I think some of you have probably joined us by now. Welcome to the Hamlet broadcast. You are welcome to G-chat me any questions, but I'm just gonna actually today talk about scene 1 of Act 5. There are only 2 scenes, guys. So there's no chance of me getting anything mixed up or switched around. So there will be no repeat of Act 4. All right, everybody? It's gonna be fine. So yeah, there are only 2 scenes in Act 5. The first one is sort of starts off very comical, and then the last scene is where everyone starts to die. Really, literally, everyone just starts dying. So yeah, things are going downhill really fast for Hamlet and everyone in this play. So that's what I thought I would talk about. I have to minimize the screen and sort of look at the screen as I'm doing this because I realized that my Hamlet copy is at school and that has my notes in it. So yeah, if you see me sort of like looking up and looking down, I'm just kind of switching out. All right, so here we go. Also, sad news. Miss Ramble could not be convinced to walk from her house to mine today. So maybe if we have another snow day, I could try to convince her to do the end of Act 5 when everyone starts to die. So you should all, this is what you should all do. You should all write her and say, Miss Ramble, you need to be part of the live broadcast tomorrow. Because it's the end of Hamlet and she has been a part of this journey with us, guys. I mean, come on. Okay, so let's talk about Hamlet Act 5. All right, so when we open up, and I'm gonna do that right now. When we open up to Hamlet Act 5, Scene 1, we are actually in a graveyard, and which makes total sense because, as we all know, one of the main themes of this play is death and this idea of, well, certainly, you know, what happens after death, but also this idea of power and, you know, we all end up in the same place. So what does it mean to be a king versus a beggar? Remember? The beggar eating the fish with the worm that was the king, yada, 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 the cycle of life. Okay, you all know about that. So yeah, this is actually in a churchyard in a graveyard, and we open up on these two clowns who aren't really clowns, like in a sense that they have red noses and are scary to a lot of people for some reason. They're clowns in a sense that they are comedic relief. And one of the clowns in the movie version with Kenneth Branagh is actually Billy Crystal, who is a very famous comedian. And so Kenneth Branagh sort of emphasizes the comedy of this scene by putting one of the most famous comedians of the time in the movie. But they're not clowns, they're actually grave diggers. And what they're doing is they're digging a grave. And sadly, I guess you could all guess whose grave they're digging. They are digging Ophelia's grave. And so the first clown starts off by saying, is she to be buried in Christian burial that willfully seeks her own salvation? So the opening question of this scene is she going to be given a Christian burial? And the answer is no, she's not. And so I think, if you think about it for a moment, the reason someone might not be given a Christian burial at the time is because if you said this out loud, congratulations, if they committed suicide. And so this is another one of the clues, I think, in the play to let us know that Ophelia might have taken her own life, because she's not being given, there's no service, memorial, things like that. And you'll see later in the scene, like the only people who are there are the king, the queen, and Laertes. And Hamlet, he shows up too. Okay, so they're going back and forth and talking about like what she might have done to have not deserved a Christian burial. And they sort of joke back and forth about like heathens. The first clown actually has a literal joke, and he says, "What is he that builds stronger than either the mason, the shipwright, or the carpenter?" And the second clown's like, "Ah, the gallows maker, for that frame outlives 1,000 tenants." So in other words, the gallows maker, the guy who builds the gallows where someone will be hanged, is the one who builds a strong structure because it outlives all the people that get hanged there. Get it? Okay, this is very morbid humor to be explaining via live stream. So anyway, so they sort of go back and forth, and then what happens is, as they're digging and they're singing and they're joking, Hamlet finally arrives back home. So remember, he like escaped the pirates, and he's on his way back, and this is where he first appears after having been sent to Denmark. Okay, and so he arrives, and he's like, why is this man singing and grave digging at the same time? And the clown is like tossing out bones from the graveyard, and the clown brings up this skull. And Hamlet, guys, knowing Hamlet, he's going to fixate on the skull because he's fixated on death. And Hamlet says, that skull had a tongue in it and could sing once. How the knave jowls it to the ground as if it were Cain's jawbone that did the first murder. It might be the pate of a politician, which this ass now o'erreaches, one that would circumvent God, might it not? So Hamlet's like, that skull could be anyone. It could be a politician. It could be, it could be someone important, and he's just sort of like casually tossing it around. So they go back and forth about what it could be and what the skull could be. And Hamlet says, "There's another. Why may not that be the skull of a lawyer? Where be his quiddities now, his quillets, his cases, his tenures, and his tricks? Why does he suffer this rude knave now to knock him about the sconce with a dirty shovel, and will not tell him of his action or battery?" So he's like, this skull could be a lawyer, and now he's just being tossed around by this grave digger. And so again, Hamlet's very fixated on this idea of like, what could that person have been? Like, who was that person? And look at them now; they're just in the ground, right? So finally, he starts talking with the clown, and they go back and forth. And Hamlet's trying to figure out who the grave is for, and he won't tell Hamlet. So Hamlet knows it's for a girl, but he doesn't know like who the girl is. And then the clown actually starts to talk about Hamlet. Like, he doesn't know that he's talking to the Prince of Denmark. He doesn't know that it's Hamlet. Um, but the clown starts going on about like Hamlet and how everyone thinks he's mad and blah, blah, blah. And so this is really funny because the clown's basically like talking about Hamlet to his face, but he has no idea. Okay. So finally, Hamlet wants to figure out whose skull this is. And the clown says, "A pestilence on him for a mad rogue. I poured a flagon of Rhenish on my head once. This same skull, sir, was Yorick's skull, the king's jester." And the king's jester would have been like a clown, you know, someone to entertain. And Hamlet has a very famous scene where he picks up the skull, right? Oh, shoot, guys, I should have had a skull. Okay, I'm gonna use my bike thing for the skull. Okay, please bear with me. And so Hamlet's like sitting there, a very, very famous sort of contemplative scene. He says, "Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio, a fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times, and now how abhorred in my imagination it is. My gorge brims at it. Here hung those lips that I have kissed, I know not how oft." And he's remembering this jester. He used to hold him up on his shoulders. He used to make him laugh. And now, you know, he's just this skull in the ground, right? This very dark, contemplative moment of like, where is he? What does he even mean now, right? And so this, for those of you who are doing the symbols of death, is probably one of the biggest symbols of death in the whole play. And Hamlet's like, "God, Horatio, you know, do you think this is what happened to the famous Alexander? He turns to dust and someone else is holding his skull," right? And so this idea of like someone of great power who sort of becomes nothing, right? And then finally, so Horatio and Hamlet are talking, and that's when they hide because they see Laertes, King Claudius, Queen Gertrude, and Ophelia's body entering the scene. And Hamlet's like, "Well, who is this? Like, what's happening?" And he goes, "Oh, that's Laertes." And Laertes, they don't see him yet. They don't see Hamlet yet. But Laertes is like, "Isn't there anything more you can do for my sister than just this, you know, hole in the ground?" And the priest says, "We've already done as much as we can," right? And Laertes is like, "God, you know what? We don't deserve her. She's this angel now." And Laertes actually leaps into the grave and holds on to Ophelia in the movie, which you will see. So it's very kind of odd, but very sad, you know, powerful moment where he like doesn't want to let go of her sister. And he says, "Lay her in the earth, and from her fair and unpolluted flesh may violets spring. I tell thee, churlish priest, a ministering angel shall my sister be when thou liest howling." And Gertrude like puts flowers on her grave, and she delivers this sort of famous line and says, "Sweets to the sweet farewell. I hoped thou shouldst have been my Hamlet's wife. I thought thy bride bed to have decked sweet maid, and not have strown thy grave." So she's like, "I had hoped to strew flowers on your, you know, wedding bed instead of your grave." And that's when Laertes like leaps into the grave. He's like, "Put the dirt on me, bury me with my sister." And this is when Hamlet jumps out, and then he leaps into the grave, right? And he's like, "It's me, Hamlet the Dane." And Laertes like he's like, "What are you doing here, devil?" And everyone starts shouting, "Hamlet, Hamlet." And Gertrude's like, "Why are you here? What are you doing?" And this, guys, is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie, because Hamlet looks up and he shouts, "I loved Ophelia. 40,000 brothers could not with all their quantity of love make up my sum. What wilt thou do for her?" And so you really have to stop here and think, is it true or is it not? Is he just saying this? But I think Kenneth Branagh's interpretation is he did love Ophelia. He loved her dearly. And he also loved his mother. And then, you know, things changed. But he like shouts out and it's like, "I loved Ophelia." And everyone's like, "What? Really?" Okay. So then everyone's like, oh, Hamlet, you're crazy, you're mad. The Queen Gertrude's like, this is mere madness, blah, blah, blah. And finally, Hamlet says, what is the reason you use me thus? I loved you ever, to his mother, but it is no matter. Let Hercules himself do what he may. The cat will mew and the dog will have his day. And he's like, it doesn't matter anymore. So you can see Hamlet's like ready to fight, but also he's giving up on this whole inner dialogue with himself. And then finally, King Claudius has the last word of this scene. And he's like, stuff's going down tomorrow, da, da, da. Because we all know that Claudius has planned this duel where Laertes and Hamlet are going to fight, but there's going to be poison on Laertes' sword when they fight, and that's supposed to kill Hamlet. Guys, Act 5, Scene 2 gets crazy, and I love it. I'm not saying I love it because people are dying, but like, it's probably all the stuff in Macbeth that you like that's now just like packed into the last scene. So I have to give you a round of applause for making it through. I really love this play, guys. I can't make people love it, but I have to just say, if you give it time and if you spend time with it, it's deep and it gets you. Like Hamlet, gets me. He's just going through so much stuff, guys. You're going through so much stuff. You're finishing high school and starting college, and you're, I don't know, thinking about, what relationships you're going to carry into college. Some of you have been through varying levels of dealing with different types of relationships and suffering and heartbreak and and drama. It's something we all can relate to, and Hamlet just gets all of it at once. And I think, honestly, if this were to happen to me, which it won't, well, yeah, it won't, but I pretty much think that I would probably go insane as well, or seem to. And I would be constantly contemplating, well, what is life, right? And in the end, I think that Hamlet's eloquence, or Shakespeare's eloquence, sort of allows us to see into the head of someone who is going through something like this. I don't know. I could keep going, but I won't. So what I thought I would do right now is just sort of pause and wait for a couple of minutes to see if anybody has any questions about Scene 1 of Act 5. I'm going to post the question that I would normally put like on the board. I haven't typed it up yet, but I'm going to put that in there. And so just try to answer that and try to do the one for the Scene 2 as well. I thought maybe it would be too much today to go into the final scene, but I have only to tell you this, that everyone dies except for Horatio. What a joyful tragedy. But it's the way that it all happens that's interesting. So yeah, we're gonna watch it, but what we're going to do next class is we're going to start our presentations. So I put up the list. It shifted things around for Encounter, although it really shouldn't matter at this point. But yeah, look at the list on the Google Doc, and that's the order in which we're going. So I want you guys to go. I realize with the snow that, I don't know, like maybe it's a little bit tricky, but we have to sort of do these for the end of the quarter. So we have to start ASAP. So I thought maybe what we do is this. Actually, I'm kind of thinking about this as I go. How about this? If there's anyone who's ready to go, email me or Gchat me, and then you guys can go tomorrow and get it out of the way. So anyone who's ready, I would love for you to go next class so we can start doing these presentations. We will be watching the end of the movie, don't worry. But I do want to start these ASAP. So go ahead and send me an email, or maybe highlight your theme on the Google Doc, and I'll take that as a sign that you guys are ready to go. But I'm going to stop now and just see if anyone has any questions. Yeah. I just realized I forgot to have lunch, guys. I was so busy live streaming. Oh, Hamlet. What joy. man, it's so nice outside. I really encourage you to go for a little walk if you can. After this, am going to make some hot chocolate. Um, and I don't know if we're gonna have school tomorrow or not, guys, but if we don't, I think I actually am gonna do a live stream about the second scene so that you guys can watch it. I'm hoping that someone will be here to do a reenactment with me. But I could always just do multiple characters, which would be, I'm sure, crazy to see, and I may or may not dress up. You never know. All right, well, I am not seeing any questions as of right now. I am going to end the broadcast, but I will be happy to answer questions via email or GChat later if you have any about the project or anything like that. So please, 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 ladies, make sure you're prepared for these projects. It's the last grade that's going in for this quarter, besides vocab. And oh, that's right, vocab. If you haven't taken your vocab, you will have to take it the next time I see you. Okay, so next time I see you in class, you will be taking your vocab quiz if you have not taken it. But yeah, just, be creative, practice, rehearse your project before you present it. And I'm excited to see what some of the creative things that you've come up with. So yeah, I'm off to make some hot chocolate. Everybody enjoy your day. Be safe. And I may or may not see you tomorrow. I don't know. But we'll see. So yeah. Bye, everyone.